Time for that press review then. Elena with us here on set. Plenty of speculation in the foreign press about Hollande's election and what it might mean, of course, for the Franco-German relationships. Crucial, this one, isn't it?
Yes, and does the end of Sarkozy mean the end of the relationship that we've seen between France and Germany? The Atlantic is asking. They say that during the campaign, Hollande campaigned almost as much against German-backed austerity policy, that is to say, really directly against Angela Merkel as he did against Sarkozy. So we can expect their relationship to be perhaps a little difficult to start with. It seems clear that Hollande doesn't really intend to privilege his relationship with Germany, which is interesting because if you look back at the history of French foreign policy, for all presidents since 1945, Germany has been their most important partner. Of course, it's the French and German relationship together that built the EU, which at its very origin was a trade agreement made in 1949 to begin with to stop the French and Germans from coming to conflict again. So if Germany isn't Hollande's most important foreign partner, that would be a significant departure for France as a whole. But they say that while obviously economic integration will remain, the era of long moonlit beach walks between the French and German leaders is probably over.
Could well be. Could be bad news though for the euro though, couldn't it?
Well, austerity backlash sends euro back to the danger zone. That's the Guardian's front page headline. They've got a rather amusing picture of a perplexed-looking Angela Merkel there. Of course, that headline is as much or more about Greece as it is about France. But they say that voters across the euro now, with these two examples and Germany's regional elections as well, are rejecting austerity policy. They're rejecting the policies that supported it. In Greece, of course, their voters overwhelmingly chose parties, both on the left and the right, who completely reject the memorandum that the previous coalition government signed with the EU and IMF that allowed IMF inspectors to come and start checking up on Greek bank accounts. So, and Germany then has made it clear that Greece's next slice of bailout cash is going to be dependent on it sticking to those budget limits that the previous government signed up to. So does this now mean then that the tide is changing across Europe and poor Greece is likely, even more likely then with this new chaotic political situation, to default and find itself outside of the Eurozone pretty quickly? Well, The Guardian seems to think so after the electorate has decisively rejected the measures that the EU wanted to impose there. The New York Times, though, says the Europeans are revolting, and it's about time too. They really mock the economist who said that Hollande was dangerous and those of a similar view. They say, well, so what if Hollande wants to create a fairer society? Quelle horreur! It's by the economist Paul Krugman, and he says it's a confidence trick that slashing public spending is going to make private consumer spending rise. We've seen now there's just no gain from the Eurozone pain, and why don't we just let these countries pull out of the Euro, go back to their own currencies, reduce the value of them, and thus create more competitiveness? Look at Iceland, for example, which you might remember was the root of the financial crisis. They're now growing again because they've got their own currency and they've been able to control their own monetary policy.
Dramatic change would be, wouldn't it? Political situation in Greece then, I mean, it does seem incredibly chaotic, doesn't it? What are the papers saying there?
Well, on Casimirini on their front page says, of course, that the first attempt to create a unity government has failed. The Conservative Party New Democracy came top. Their leader, Antonis Samaras, had to accept last night he can't form a government. So it then falls to the far left party, whose leader is called Alexis Tsipras, I think, can't pronounce it terribly well, who's now going to attempt to create a left-wing coalition. Now, the paper Casimirini, that one there, is quite conservative and has supported the austerity policies, but they say we've got to accept now that Greek voters have rejected them. And if we're going to have social peace in Greece as opposed to people rioting on the streets, then what we need is to allow the far left to put their policies in place to form a left-wing coalition. And if that means they're going to insist on Greece's debts being written off, and as a result Greece has to default and fall out of the euro even, well, that's what Greek voters seem to have asked for, so then that's what they should get, according to Casimirini. The Guardian is explaining a little bit more who exactly Syriza, this far-left party, are, where have they come from. They say they're a disparate coalition, which include former communists, Trotskyists, Greens, left nationalists, all kinds of people who've been sort of put into a disparate kind of coalition. They've channeled a powerful hunger for rebellion and release, they say, but it's unsure what they might actually do with power.
Elena, thanks very much. Elena Casas with the international papers.